I call to meeting the order of the Portsmouth City Council. And before we get into the business of the people, I want to welcome everybody back to the council chambers. And thank you all for your patience through this process, through the pandemic. Council members, would you please stand for a moment of silence for all the lives that was lost during the COVID-19 pandemic and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I ask all the citizens to stand with us. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Barnes.
Present.
Mr. Battle.
Here.
Mrs. Lucasberg. Here. Mr. Moody.
Here.
Dr. Whitaker.
Present.
Mr. Woodard.
Here.
Mayor Glover.
Here. Members of council, we have for our consideration the minutes of a virtual call meeting on June 7th, 2021, a virtual call meeting on June 8th, 2021, a virtual regular meeting on June 8th, 2021, a virtual call meeting on June 14th, 2021. Is there any discussion of the minutes? If not, we're in need of a motion and a second.
Motion to approve. Second.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes.
Yes.
Mr. Battle.
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg. Yes. Mr. Moody.
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker.
Yes.
Mr. Woodard.
Yes.
Mayor Glover.
Yes. We now have a presentation of a proclamation to Mrs. Deloris Overton Short. Mrs. Short, would you join me in front of the Sergeant of Arms desk, please? How are you?
Good.
Good to see you. Whereas Mrs. Deloris Overton Short became the first African-American General Registrar in Southampton Roads on July 2nd, 1993, and whereas Mrs. Overton Short strived to make a difference and enhance Portsmouth's voter registration operations despite the declining population, the number of registered voters increased by 63% from approximately 42,500 in 1993 to over 67,000 in 2021. And whereas she has made significant improvements in Portsmouth's voter registration systems and voter education programs, which have resulted in high voter turnouts in most elections. And whereas in 1994, the General Registrar's office relocated from the 5th floor to the 1st floor to provide greater visibility and accessibility to citizens of Portsmouth. In 1997, the office installed global election system optical scanners and ADA-compliant TSX voting equipment that replaced the 32-year-old voting machines. In 2009, the office utilized electronic poll books, which made the check-in process more efficient and reduced the number of election officers needed at the polls. In 2018, the office replaced the machines used in 1997 with new DS200 scanners and ADA-compliant express vote marking devices. In 2020, the office installed a new DS450 high-speed scanner to process large volumes of absentee by mail ballots, and whereas every year the General Registrar's Office conducts voter registration drives in Portsmouth Public Schools, the office mails up-to-date voting information to individuals, civic leagues, and other organizations, and conducts annual third-party voter registration training to the same organizations and citizens upon request. Now, therefore, I, Shannon E. Glover, Mayor of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, do hereby proclaim June 22nd through 30th, 2021, as Mrs. Deloris Overton Short's Retirement Celebration Days. In Portsmouth, and I urge our citizens to join me in honoring and celebrating her retirement and recognizing the many achievements brought to the General Registrar's Office with her dedication. In witness whereof, and on behalf of the Portsmouth City Council, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Portsmouth, Virginia, to be affixed this 22nd day of June, 2021.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Before I hand the microphone over to Mrs. Deloris Overton Short, I just want to say to you from the mayor that you are the most professional, excellent, and committed person that I've ever known to do a job. And I am grateful for our friendship and our relationship. And I hope that you, although you are leaving the building, you will never leave coming back to see us to let us know how you're doing in the future. Thank you so much.
Mayor Glover, Vice Mayor Bonds, City Council members, City Manager, management staff, City Clerk and staff, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I am incredibly grateful to have had the opportunity to serve the citizens of Portsmouth. The Office of the General Registrar's success is due to its competent, efficient, dedicated staff, the hundreds of election officers who faithfully work at the polls, the electoral board, past and present members, the city staff, the city school system, and the many volunteers who encourage voter registration, voter education, and voter participation. These individuals ensured that all elections in Portsmouth ran efficiently, smoothly, and without disruption. I owe a debt of gratitude to my parents, husband, family, and dear friends who have provided unwavering support, advice, and guidance throughout my career. Although this is the end of my career as General Registrar, it is not the end of my service to my beloved city of Portsmouth. Thank you.
Councilwoman Lisa Lucas Burke, would you please come to provide the comments that you wanted to provide?
Greetings, everyone. I know Deloris I didn't know if she was going to say that in part of her speech, but she do have some special family and friends, all of us, because all of us have been connected to her one way or another, but she do have some special family here. Her husband and her sister are here. Want to recognize Mr. General Short and your sister, with Deloris. Yes, so if you would stand and say hello to everyone here. Yes. And Ms. Carolyn Sumlin, you have been a wealth of knowledge for us and for her, and we appreciate what you have done to help support her over the years as well. And just wave, just say hello to everyone, Carolyn, and from the Electoral Board. Thank you. And we also have some special ladies from some organizations that Ms. Deloris is involved in, and some special ladies in green, and I'm wearing green as well. So we do want those ladies and their connecting link husbands to stay in the partners. So the ladies from the Links are here, which is one of the organizations she's involved in as well. That's it. And that's it. That's winning. Council members here too. Bishop Edmonds and
Okay.
Yeah, and I would like to recognize part of my staff. Would you please stand?
And certainly, you all may be asking the question, well, if she's leaving, who in the world is coming in? Well, I can tell you that this young lady right here has chosen, and the Electoral Board has chosen a stellar replacement who worked under the tutelage of this wonderful lady right here. And I think that is going to be good for the city of Portsmouth for many years to come. Miss Alexandra Reed. Alexandra Reed. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you doing your thing each and every day. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Also, I did want to take a moment to recognize two former council colleagues that are in the audience. Councilwoman Lucas Burke has made me aware. I see Council Member Ray Smith and Council Member Bishop Edmonds over there, Bishop Curtis Edmonds. Thank you both, sirs, for your service. Madam Clerk, would you please read the speaker rules?
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his or her comments.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir.
We have now come to the item on the agenda of public hearing. Item 21-185. Madam Clerk, would you please read the item?
Yes, sir. Item 21-185 is the receipt of bids pursuant to an invitation for bids for a non-exclusive fiber franchise agreement. In accordance with state law, public notice was placed in the local press by the city clerk's office to accept bids for an exclusive wireless facilities franchise agreement. The agreements will have a term of 7 years with annual renewal terms of 1 year and will allow for the placement of fiber facilities within the city's right-of-way.
Madam Clerk, how many bids have been received?
2 bids have been received.
May you please read the bids?
Yes, sir. Loomis Networks, Inc., DBA Segra, has submitted the following bid. The City of Portsmouth published a notice of public hearing in the Virginian Pilot on June 13, 2021, and June 20th, 2021, respectively, to inform the public that City Council, pursuant to Virginia Code 15.2-2101, would be holding a public hearing to provide the citizens of Portsmouth, Virginia, with an opportunity to be heard relative to a proposal to approve a non-exclusive fiber franchise agreement within the corporate limits of the city. In response to this notice public hearing, Loomis Networks DBA Segra submits the following responsive bid information. From the birth as a Clifton Forge Waynesboro Telephone Company back in 1897, Segra as presented constituted is the result of the merger of Loomis Networks and Spirit Communications in 2018, with the combined company being rebranded as Segra in January 2019. Today, Segra is proud to offer one of the largest and most advanced fiber optic infrastructure networks in the eastern United States, consisting of over 30,000 fiber route miles. Based upon these qualifications and its long history of providing high-quality advanced telecommunications service in the Commonwealth of Virginia, Segra is uniquely qualified to perform the duties required under the proposed non-exclusive fiber franchise agreement with the City of Portsmouth. Therefore, subject to review, negotiation, and execution of the final form, Segra agrees to comply with the non-exclusive fiber franchise agreement negotiated with the city and more specifically state in the attached. And I have marked for identification as Segra. Level 3 Communications of Virginia has submitted the following bid. Level 3 Communications hereby submits this proposed bid for a non-exclusive telecommunications franchise agreement with the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, in support of Level 3 states as follows. 1, Level 3 is a Virginia corporation authorized to do business in Virginia and in good standing, SCC number 05914940. Level 3 operates and maintains a robust global fiber optic network. Number 2, Level 3 desires to place its fiber optic telecommunications equipment and facilities within the public right-of-way within the city limits of Portsmouth in accordance with the terms and conditions specified in the accompanying telecommunications franchise agreement and pursuant to the requirements of Chapter 32, Article 2 of the City Code and the provisions of Virginia Code Section 15.2-2100, 15.2-2101, and 56-462. Wherefore, Level 3 submits this bid for authorization to place its telecommunications facilities within the city limits of Portsmouth and for approval of the accompanying telecommunications franchise agreement.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are
Yes,
there any
sir.
additional bids offered?
No, sir, not at this time.
If hearing none, then I declare the bidding closed. I now open item 21-186, public hearing on bids for a fiber franchise agreement. Are there any registered speakers from the speaker list?
No, sir.
Are there any speakers from the public that wish to come forward and speak on this item? Hearing none, I declare this public hearing closed. Is there a recommendation from city staff regarding the bids received from Segra and Level 3?
Mayor,
Here.
I would just,
Mr. Attorney, sir, you have the floor.
For this, that's her part right there.
from a legal perspective, the two contracts, franchise agreements are very strongly in the city's favor. They're very standard agreements, similar to the cell franchises. The cell franchises that we approved several months ago. Councilman Battle, you were asking about liability.
I want to know, are we compelled to vote for this?
Well, I think that you're probably compelled to
By
vote.
law? No, to vote in favor of this by law.
No, you're not compelled by law to vote for it.
Well, at this point, we haven't organized the operating authority yet, and the system hasn't been completed.
No, not with this one. These are separate franchise agreements. This is not part of the ring that was discussed earlier.
I understand, but the governing authority has not been trained properly to make a decision on something like this right now. You have to make sure that the governing authority is trained properly as to make the best possible decision for the city. This is a premature situation. I think we need to scale back on this. This is pushing things. We are the operating authority, but we didn't go over this bid. We didn't ask for it. We aren't organized enough to make the decisions as to successfully represent the citizens of our city.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Just to make sure we're clear, in our previous session, this does not pertain to the Portsmouth Broadband Authority. This is a totally separate entity request, and it has nothing to do with the ring that we discussed earlier. Would this be similar to any wireless company just requesting an agreement to lay their cable in the city? This has nothing to do with the ring broadband.
You're exactly right, Dr. Whitaker. This is just a right-of-way that phone companies do use, fiber optics companies use, and it really benefits the city, as Assistant Attorney Swanger spoke of earlier. All they're doing is just laying cable so that they can provide more internet service to the city, and it opens up big data centers, and it increases business in the city. So it's not part of the ring whatsoever. It's just two separate franchise agreements, like the cell phone ones that we approved several months ago. The contracts are heavily in favor of the city. We've got we can't be held liable except for our own negligence. There's a surety required. There's a bond. There's insurance. There's indemnification even.
Excuse me.
Mr. Battle, please, let him finish, sir.
From a legal perspective, it's a very strong contract in our favor, which most of them, I mean, they're almost all the same. They come out of the same form. Every city wants this and they want this cable laid. It benefits the city. And so, but from a legal point of view, it's a very strong contract in favor of the city.
Well, I understand your interpretation of the contract, and I'm not doubting you, but don't you think that we as the council should share your interpretation by you going over the contract with us? I mean, I'm not saying anything is benign. All I'm saying is we need to go through this carefully as to best represent the citizens. Yeah, you've mentioned the benefits that it has to the city, but what are we giving up? I know we're giving up something. They're just not going to put their cables in the ground to benefit us. So it's something there that they're doing it. I'm saying we need to get a better understanding of the contract, the benefits, what they're getting, what we're getting. And it's nice that we have deferred to the attorney's office a decision that we should be making, but I'm not comfortable with it. If we're gonna make the decision, not talking about the rest of the council, I need to know much more about this marriage.
The
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And Madam City Manager, did you have a comment you wanted to
I
make,
just
ma'am?
wanted to make it known that the city staff recommends that the bids by both Siegra and Level 3 be accepted.
Thank you, ma'am. And Madam Clerk, we're at the, are we doing A and B together, or are we doing them separately?
They have to be separate, sir.
Okay. So item A, could you read that, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting the bid submitted by Loomis Networks, Inc., DBA Segra, for a non-exclusive fiber franchise agreement having a term of 7 years with annual renewal terms of 1 year each, authorizing the placement of fiber facilities within the city's public ways.
Move for approval.
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
I'm gonna abstain.
what are,
I don't have enough information to vote for this project, so, no.
Is that a no, sir?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Can you take the next item, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Item B, an ordinance accepting the bid submitted by Level 3 Communications of Virginia, Inc. for a non-exclusive fiber franchise agreement having a term of 7 years with annual renewal terms of 1 year each, authorizing the placement of fiber facilities within the city's public ways.
Move for approval.
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
No.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. We've come to the item on the agenda of unfinished business. Item 21-169, rezoning and use permit and code amendments. And Madam Clerk, would you read the captions?
Yes, sir. For 21-169A, the ordinance reads zoning amendment ordinance Z 21-02. For item B, the resolution reads, a resolution granting a use permit UP 2109 to D and K Builders to construct a townhouse development having not more than 52 units at 1107 and 1021 High Street. Item C is an ordinance, and it's an ordinance to amend and reordain Chapter 40.2 of the Code of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, by modifying Sections 40.2-307 and 40.2-533 and 40.2-535 and Table 40.2-301 for the purpose of modifying requirements related to outdoor advertising, signs and off-premises signs, non-conforming signs, freestanding permanent signs, changeable copy, and off-street parking standards for multi-family dwellings. And item D is an ordinance, and it reads, an ordinance to amend and reordain Chapter 40.2 of the Code of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, by modifying Section 40.2-532, zoning text and zoning map amendments, and Section 40.2-533, use permits for the purpose of eliminating the requirement for a second reading on approved zoning items.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And are we considering all these items individually or all together?
One motion and vote, sir.
Understood. Then, with that in mind, Are there any registered speakers?
No, sir.
For item A, council members, do we have any discussion?
No, sir, you're doing all of these at one time.
All of them? Okay, that's, okay, I'm sorry. For all of them, do we have any discussion on these 4 items? Hearing none?
Mayor, move for the approval of items under item 21-169.
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. We have now come to the city manager's report. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the ordinance we are considering pertaining to item 21-187?
Yes, sir. An ordinance to amend and reordain Chapter 2 of the Code of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia by modifying Section 2-29 thereof, procedure for adoption of ordinances and resolutions for the purpose of eliminating the requirement for a second reading on approved zoning items.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any registered speakers?
No, sir.
Council members, are there any discussions on this item? Do we have a motion and a second?
Move adoption.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. We have come to item 21-188. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the resolution we're considering pertaining to this item?
Yes, sir. A resolution to amend the rules of order and procedure of the Portsmouth City Council for the purpose of conforming the rules to amended Section 2-29 of the City Code.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes,
And
sir.
are there any registered speakers?
No, sir.
Council colleagues, is there any discussion on this matter? This item? We're needing a motion and a second.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. We are now at item 21-189. And Madam Clerk, please read the resolution we're considering pertaining to this item.
Yes, sir. A resolution authorizing the continued leasing of former railroad right-of-way located in Suffolk to the city of Suffolk for use as a recreational trail.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any speakers for this item?
No, sir.
Any discussion from my colleagues on council? We are needing of a motion and a second.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. We have now come to new business, item 21-190, boards and commissions. Vice Mayor Barnes and Dr. Whitaker, are there any appointments to bring forward for council's consideration?
Yes. I'm gonna start with the reappointment first. For your consideration, we have Mr. Bryant Thomas for the Newport Development Authority. And then our next one are those that's being appointed.
Excuse me, Councilman, Vice Mayor, is your mic on? I'm
I think your
sorry.
mic needs to be turned on. Yes, sir.
Just needs some adjustment. Okay, I'm sorry.
Need to get a little close. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sound like Barry White now. For your consideration for PRHA, we have Clifton Perkins, and for Social Service Advisory Commission, Ashley Allen. Those are the ones that we're asking for approval from council.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk,
We need a second, sir.
we do need a second.
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 Could you call the roll, please?
Who made?
I heard him
Who
say
made the
second.
motion?
The recommendation motion
Right.
came from Vice Mayor
Right.
Barnes.
He made the motion recommendation, and we seconded it. Dr. Whitaker seconded it, as did Councilwoman Lucas-Burke.
Okay, thank you.
Would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucas-Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir.
We've now come to item 21-191, items submitted by council. And Madam Clerk, please read the resolution we're considering pertaining to this item.
Yes, sir. A resolution ratifying the minutes of the meetings of the Portsmouth City Council held electronically pursuant to emergency procedures established to ensure the continuity of local government during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any speakers for this item?
No, sir.
Any discussion amongst my colleagues on council? Seeing none, we are in need of a motion and a second.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucas-Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes, we have now come to item B. And Madam Clerk, please read the ordinance we are considering pertaining to this item.
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting federal education grant funding in the amount of $934,619 and appropriating said amount into the FY 2021 Portsmouth Public Schools Grant Fund budget.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Are there any registered speakers for this item?
No, sir.
Colleagues on council?
Move for approval.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucas-Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Council colleagues, do you have any other items to submit?
Yes.
And yes.
Vice Mayor, you have the floor, sir.
First, I want to give a shout out to all our Portsmouth public school seniors. This weekend, myself and Councilman Woodard attended all of the graduations, Wilson, Norcom, and Churchland. So I want to give them a big shout out. A lot of them are about to go do some big things for our city. So looking forward to that. And everything that I'm mentioning today looks like it's involved with the school. Last Thursday, Councilman Woodard and I went to Churchland Middle School, and we showed appreciation to the staff there by cooking on the grill. They said I was the better cook, but it was good to go out and show appreciation to the staff. They did a lot of good work this year, especially with the pandemic, so it was an easy thing for us to go do that when they asked. Also, myself, the mayor, Councilwoman Lucas and Councilman Woodard attended the Portsmouth Public Schools retirement ceremony. I saw a lot of my old teachers, some currently principals, but they're retiring and leaving the city. We tried to bribe them to come back, but we couldn't do that. But and then I want to give a shout out to the Big Homies Outreach. They had a tournament today. One of the leaders in that is Eugene Swenson and DeCarlos Anderson. They had a tournament today for our a basketball tournament for our unsigned seniors. They had a lot of scouts there, a lot of media that can get the athletes video out. So I want to give them a shout out for what they're doing. That was big for our city, and it was big for Portsmouth kids to give them that opportunity. Other than that, I do not have anything, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Lucas-Burke, ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to invite our citizens and friends and family who will be in town for the 4th of July, join the cities of Portsmouth and Norfolk for the annual Elizabeth River Fireworks Show on Sunday, July 4th. It'll be at 9:30. Get there early, bring your seats, and enjoy the show. and something that we've been looking forward to. The pandemic has kept us in the house and kept us away from all of the things that we enjoy. Sunset Thursdays will begin on Thursday, July 8th at 6:30 at the High Street Landing. So bring your seats and be ready for a good show. I believe it's Raw Jazz is going to start it up. I already know the list by heart, but join us Thursday. Thank you.
Dr. Whitaker, sir,
Yes.
you have the
Yes.
floor, sir.
This is just for the city manager as far as the update on the pending items. There was some mention about the agenda items that we would like to discuss during our work session.
Yes.
And just curious as far as when we would get that, and when we do, just want to make sure that the issue pertaining to the American Rescue Act funds that we're receiving, how those are going to be used. The homeless issue that we discussed as far as the unified building, and then the disparity study
Yes.
update.
You will receive that report tomorrow,
Okay,
and then there will be work sessions scheduled so that we can discuss those topics in more detail.
okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Madam City Manager, item 21-192, report on pending items. Are there any items you would like to report, ma'am?
Not at this time.
Thank you. We've now come to item 21-193, non-agenda speakers. Do we have a speakers list?
Yes, sir, it's in front of you.
Councilmember Moody had it. Our first speaker, Mr. Bracy Parr. Mr. Parr, are you present? Welcome to City Council, sir. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Bracy Parr. I reside at 11 Afton Parkway, and I'm the president of the Craddock Civic League, and currently we stand at 75 paid members. I want to start by thanking the city manager, Mr. Palmerchuk, and Parks and Rec for allowing us to rent out the skate park for the first time ever. We had about 300 people come to our Juneteenth jam on Saturday, and about 30 participants from 10 years old to 70 years old that went out and skated. So it was an awesome event. We also wanted to remind all of council about our July 3rd event. It'll be our 102nd Patriotic Salute, where we're celebrating liberty and justice for all at 10:30, starting in Afton Square. Beginning in January of 2021, the Craddock Civic League embarked on an evidence-based journey to reduce crime in our neighborhood, which included identifying street lights that were out or cycling, improving blighted properties and trash cleanups, engaging with youth in our Craddock Garden and Skateboard Park, and reviving our neighborhood watch. The city is set to receive $44 million under the American Rescue Act, but unfortunately, a more sobering statistic to me is that it cost on average $270,399 per gun fatality in Virginia, and about twice that much for child gun fatalities. That's according to everytown.org. We are looking for ways to combat crime in our neighborhood and in Portsmouth that go beyond police intervention. It's a common thing to hear that we cannot arrest our way out of crime, and we as a Craddock Civic League are trying through environmental design and youth engagement to do as much as we can at our level to reduce crime. As such, please consider your promises to Craddock when you are apportioning this money. The fire station and skate park issue was tabled back in February, and we have not heard back on it since. We met over 2 months ago with the city manager and the fire chief, and we have not scheduled a public working session yet. The community center, which was promised by 6 seated council members, we have not heard any information, neither to include any sort of alternative, which we are happy to discuss. And lastly, we have not received any update on the property at 19 Afton, which is a flagrant violation of so many city and state laws to prostitution, drug offenses, otherwise, human trafficking possibly. A girl was shot in the head across the street from that property. It is a nexus of crime and evil, and for over 10 years, the Civic League has been urging City Council to take action. Most recently, last week, I sent an email trying to get all of our heads together, the city manager, inspections, police, the attorney, to be able to finally carry out this criminal blight suit. If it's not possible, we would like to know. But as it stands now, we don't understand why we are not able to take care of this problem. And it's a sign for criminals in our city that they can go without any sort of punishment. However the $44 million is apportioned and we choose to move forward, the Civic League will be a partner for change and pushing change in our community. We just want to remind City Council that we are here and we're ready to roll up our sleeves and work. We need your support as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor Barnes, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, President Bracy. To go with what he said, there's something called the broken windows theory. And when you see a broken window, that attracts crime. And that goes to what he was talking about as far as the blighted buildings, the blighted communities. And just to be completely fair, there's a lot of that in Portsmouth, which has been attracting crime in our city. So I hope that we are aggressive with the monies that's coming from this act and putting it in, investing into things that's going to stop the crime in our city, because we all rant on that. And I mean, we haven't escaped that problem. It's been an issue for years and years and years. I talk about being from Dale's home all the time, and now that community is worse than it's ever before. People out that community are very, very scared. And in this city, just to be honest, we haven't done anything to stop the crime. All we've done is talk, had meetings, but nothing aggressively helping the crime in this city. So I'm hoping that we can really get serious about the crime in Craddock, Dale homes, all over the community of Portsmouth, because as you can see, we just lost a 14 or 15-year-old a couple of weeks ago. Somebody was shot yesterday, today. It's happening on a regular basis in this city. And as I always say, this city hasn't done anything for these children, hasn't done anything to stop crime. And what you have now is the chickens coming home to roost.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Mayor, I would like to ask staff to get back to the specific items that Mr. Bracy brought up. Many of those items we've had discussions on prior. And I would like to include the update on the Afton Green project. That's the project that's been underway for maybe 12 years. I haven't seen any activity over there recently. So if you could include that in the update as well. I'm sure Mr. Bracy and the Civic League are probably interested in that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Mayor?
Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
I would hope that my colleagues look at the issue that was just brought to us from a broader perspective of poverty. And I think that we just seated our city manager here recently, and there has been discussion of us having a presentation from a strategic standpoint of how we're going to not just address Craddock, but we're going to address the needs of the city, not setting any one community over the other. And I think that that has to be done from a strategic standpoint that involves education, recreation, social services. It's a broad net that we have to look at poverty other than just putting together a citizens commission, but it has to be a sincere effort. I'm not sure if we've really had the sincere effort of addressing it from that perspective. So I look forward to allowing our city manager, who has dealt with this issue in other jurisdictions, I would like for her to have that opportunity to present the council. That's why I asked the previous issue about those funds and how we be used so we can approach it. And I know, Mayor, you have also discuss from a strategic standpoint about the recreation. And so all of that is part of it. And if we start going back to our original designs of nitpicking and hitting this instead of a strategic approach, I think we're going to miss out on an opportunity to make a difference. And so I encourage my colleagues to make sure we consider the poverty issue from a strategic standpoint.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to go back to what President Bracy was talking about, that particular address, whatnot, I have got numerous complaints from the Craddock area and just neighborhoods alone. Some of the homeowners are trying to get down to the source and see who owns some of these properties, and sometimes it makes it hard for them to get in contact with who the sole owner is. And that sometimes causes a rift in the communities because, they can't, talk to the homeowner itself because it's being rented out. So I think this is something that we should tackle head on, working with the city manager, just seeing what we can do with these blighted properties, these properties that may be causing nuisance or crime within the communities, or just figuring out what the problem in general. We don't want to say it's just crime all the time, but just figuring out in general what's the problem. It could be, a sublease type of tenant or whatnot. So I think this is something we should work on in the future. Well, I'll say now, and get to the bottom of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor Barnes, you have the floor, sir.
To go with what Councilman Whitaker said, I'm in totally agreement with him. But I do think that although city manager is new, I do want to make sure that we get a time frame on that because the crime is not stopping until we wait for a plan. So we have to put a plan together now.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Lucasberg.
Great, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the conversation all my colleagues have had. I think it is bringing us to a head, and I guess it reminds me of a commission that was set. I'm not even sure if the Citizens Commission was in place, if it's still one that will be addressed by the community, because I think it started a couple of years ago before the pandemic, and I know that some citizens were appointed. But I'd like to applaud President Bracy for coming as a Civic League president. A lot of times, because we're in council meetings and liaison meetings, we don't get out to the Civic Leagues. And so I appreciate you bringing the information back. And, maybe we can put on our agenda to hear from the Civic Leagues all across the city so that we can find out what those combined concerns and issues and problems are related to poverty and, other issues that are affecting our community. So if that's something that we can put the American Rescue Plan funding towards to help our communities to be better. I know neighborhood beautification and involvement and in our civic leagues was something that we had spoken about previously. So if that's something that we could join together, our civic leagues, with that community citizens review board or whoever they were. I don't even know who the players were, but if we could just look back and see if it's still something that's functioning, that could probably help to tie together some of these loose ends that we are encountering in this day and time. But thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. And if I could just add to that discussion, on June the 10th, myself, the vice mayor, the city manager, department heads, the police department, the fire department, nonprofit groups within the city of Portsmouth who deal with these issues of gun violence and difficulties that folks are having in their homes, resources, poverty. We convened the meeting of stakeholders. And the purpose of that meeting was to begin the process, because it is a process of bringing all of us together. This is not a city council problem. This is a community problem. And as city council members and leaders, we are here as a unified front. Make no mistake about it. Everyone up here is a father, is a son, is a grandfather, is a brother and a sister. And we do not want to see any of our children or any individuals within our city or even in our region, for that matter, experience gun violence and violence in general. We are going to work together. I want to send that message. What the Vice Mayor mentioned and what Dr. Whitaker, what Councilwoman Lucas Burke mentioned, what Councilmember Woodard mentioned are all valid. But one of the things I would say to this group, and I say to everyone, we have to start by building the relationships with each other and utilizing the resources and the institutional and in-depth knowledge of all these professionals. We've got the people to solve some of these problems. Are we going to solve them overnight? No, because they weren't created overnight. But what we must do, and we can't shirk that responsibility, we've got to find a better way together so that our children can grow up in a safe and productive environment just like I did and become something, and make sure that we provide a safe community for our citizens, our businesses, for everyone to go and prosper. So I just want to make that clear. There is no division on this council as it relates to that. We are all going to put all of our resources and all of our heads together to improve in that way. And I think the city manager would agree with that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir. Dr. Whitaker.
I just want to make sure that as we discuss this issue, that we don't overlook the fact that what we're discussing isn't anything new. There is research out there that has already shown us what these issues are, how to address them.
Yes, sir.
The issue is, will we be willing to do it and put those resources in the places where they need to be? We just funded for the first time the superintendents and the school boards full budget that was recommended. That's the first time it's ever been done.
Yes, sir.
And we all know how important education is in addressing poverty. So it's just we have the data out there, and that's why I say I don't want this to be anecdotal where we're pulling citizens' comments and all that. No, we have institutions, and we had it in place before where we did have universities involved in this, and then we watered down the process by bringing in some other entities. And I think we should stay committed to that. That's why we have a trained city manager who knows how to deal with the data and bring that back to us, those practices, and we put resources towards those things.
Well, thank you, sir, for that. And I can assure you that with this team, I think we have a sense of commitment to getting some real things done.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Barnes.
So with that being said, I just want to make sure I understand you, Councilman Whitaker. Since we do have the data, we should go ahead and put a time frame of when we should get some information back, and not just let this go and talk about it today and just come up later. Because we did have those meetings, but and it was a lot of good people in those meetings, but you know, the issue, somebody got shot the next day after that meeting. So, we got to do something more quicker. We got to do something quicker to deal with these issues. So I think we should get a time frame before we move on.
Councilmember Battle, sir, you have the floor.
We're going to need what I would call the 2 Ps. We're going to need policies, sound policies, and programs. Mm-hmm. We have to get together and address those blighted areas or those areas and have a policy in place for the person that's renting the home or own the home. At the same time, we have to go to those communities who solidly need the programs that we have just put funding in place for, and they'll be implemented soon. But we have to also get those policies together to address those areas, those particular homes, those particular corners, and we're going to do that. We'll do that.
Thank you, sir. This will be the last question on this because we have to continue on with our speakers. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
I don't have a question. I just want a time frame.
Madam City Manager.
That time frame is going to be based on me reviewing that information that you say is available, and once I get that, and will you review the list of topics that I'm going to bring forward, and we get the regulations and how we can use the funding, then I'll have a time frame. But at this point, I have data that I still need to look at. And once I get that, I can give you a better time frame.
Thank you, ma'am.
To give a ballpark, I can say within the next 6 months, something I can bring back.
Sir, you don't have the floor right now? And sh- and sh-
I know.
and she-
I'll give you back the floor. I'm sorry,
Yes, yes, sir.
Your Highness.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Our next speaker is Mark Godaldig-Yatrovsky. Welcome, sir. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir, Mayor, Council, and other neighbors. The reason I preface my remarks in that fashion is the mayor and council are neighbors also, and everybody else is another neighbor, for the sake of clarification. So y'all look different tonight from what I've seen over the last number of months. You're looking good. You seem to have come through the pandemic, not visibly scarred or scathed, but then there's the emotional toll that it's taken, and that's harder to actually detect from outward appearances. But I hope that you all are doing well, and your families are as well. So this is 6 months into the term, almost 6 months. The 30th would conclude the 6 months into the term of this council. And so I thought I'd give you a 6-month review. I'm very much interested in the topics of transparency and accountability from all elected officials. I want to say that some of you do a better job in regard to letting the public know what your thinking is on the issues that come before you. And I believe that you owe it to us to explain your thinking, especially when an item like the one development that was proposed for the storage, self-storage, when it brings the prospect of more tax revenue for a city that is not running over with tax revenue. I did not hear explanations for why council members would vote to turn that away. If I had, I may have been on the same page with you in rejecting it, but you left your thinking inside your heads, and you owe it to your constituents to explain what brought you to the conclusions you came to. In terms of transparency, you're in the process of meeting with regard to filling two important positions in this city, one of them being the permanent city attorney and the other being the permanent assessor. And while you have the right, you have the ability under the Freedom of Information Act to conduct certain aspects of those discussions behind closed doors, it would be helpful to us as citizens to hear you discussing among yourselves what qualities you're looking for in the successful candidates for those positions. You haven't had that discussion in public, and I believe that's something that is overdue. I want to commend Vice Mayor Barnes for something that he does in the accountability and transparency realm. He regularly has a social media chat in which he covers certain topics that have been covered in council, and he provides some illumination into what he's thinking. That's something I'd ask for from all of you. But those things that you say here in this forum carry farther than anything you say in your personal forum. And so I don't object to it. I enjoy, in fact, that additional insight into what's going on in his mind, but I'd like to see more of that here. So I thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker. Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Sergio O'Neill. You have 5 minutes, sir, and thank you for being here tonight.
Good evening. First of all, it's nice to see all of you in person again. I know this has been some challenging times that we've been in, but through the great graces of God, we are all still here and able to celebrate one another in a form of leadership. On another note, I have some grave concerns. I heard a lot of people talking about the crime. Thank you, Mr. Bracy, President Bracy, for bringing it forward in Craddock. But I can also tell you, since I have moved from Capitol Manor back down to an area where I'm from, which is where I was actually born and raised at, which is in the area of Elm and Duke, it's going on and popping down there. And it is a shame to see some of the same people, the same faces over and over again in the same old stuff. And like it was said, and it's very true, we've given a lot of lip service and song and dance to the issue of crime and poverty, but where is the progress? Where is the action behind it? I can tell you a firm example of how I know what time it is in our neighborhoods. I recently bought a tenant Impala. My car looks like a police car. You know how many people run when they see my car? I can tell you, every time I pull, it's sad, but that goes to show you the amount of crime. I can judge the amount of crime going on just by how many people run when they see my car. My car got 30-day tags on it. They still run because of the simple fact that they are scared because they know that they're doing something they're not supposed to. I know we can't police our way out of it. That's not always the resolution. But I can tell you that something has to be done, because I can tell you this. The longer we song and dance and tap dance around it and whatever the case might be, the more somebody gonna be killed, the more somebody gonna be robbed, the more somebody gonna be stabbed, all that good stuff, bad stuff. How are our youth supposed to have something to look forward to when they are scared to come outside? I can count plenty of times how many gunshots I hear on the corner of Elm and Duke. How many people get robbed in that area on a daily and nightly basis. How many people get stabbed down there. How many people are overdosing on drugs in that area. And some of these people, I'm 33 years old, I've been seeing these people all my life. The same people doing the same stuff over and over again. Look, I think that we have to be mindful of when we're saying, we do have to have a timeline. I agree with Vice Mayor Barnes on that, because we can't say, we got an infinite amount of time to figure out what this problem is. Because guess what? When our kids are growing up and seeing this, by the time we get action, they can't be 18, 19, 20 years old before they see the end result. They need to start seeing it now. Because I can tell you right now, the people that are committing these crimes are 14, 15, 13, 12 years old. What do you tell a 12 or 13-year-old that's out there, that's all they see around them is crime being committed, that, something is coming along, but we just don't know when? When are we going to start saving our youth? I see Ms. Fink here. She is an advocate for our youth, but I can almost guarantee you she could tell me how many sad stories she's heard with the youth that come through the juvenile court. I believe that's our new public defender. I sit on the Community Criminal Justice Board with her. I'm glad she's here because she can hear to see some of the people, some of the concerns that are coming up, some of the people that are going to come through her office to find out what is going on. I'm glad to see we have a new city manager. You have a big road to fill, man, because I can tell you right now, this is not fly on the go in Portsmouth. You got to be ready to roll with the punches around here, because they're gonna give it to you left and right, quick, fast, and in they hurry. So I am asking all of you. I get it. We have a priority system. Like Dr. Whitaker wants to make sure everybody's heard. I get that. But at the same time, we have a priority system, and we need to do something like right now with some of these areas. Otherwise, I can tell you right now, we're not going to have enough ambulance to come pick these people up off the street. We're not going to have enough police officers to come stop this crazy stuff that's going on. We're not going to have enough teachers to do nothing, because the kids that are coming up that are supposed to be in those positions, they're going to go somewhere else. They're not going to keep people. I have my new son is now 2 months old. And I said, man, I got to bring my baby home. But I got to make sure that before I pull him out the car, nobody's laying on the ground, nobody's trying to rob me, nobody's trying to snatch him, and all that kind of stuff. And I can tell you right now, I don't play when it comes to kids. Anybody that know me, I grew up with taking care of youth. My own kids, they know I do not play. I'm not playing with my neighbor's kids. They know when they see Sergio pull up, they better have it together. And the adults around them, they know I don't mess around with them either. Because if they're doing something crazy, I'm coming to get them before they got to call anybody else. Because we have to start taking action. Somebody said this is not a city council issue. It is. It is. But it's also a community issue, because we got to start lip slurping and flapping our lips, or we get on Facebook and parade, but we don't come down here. We don't get in the street. So that's my advice to you all. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor,
Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Mr. Neal raises a question, an issue that is a very relevant question that you have to ask yourself, and that is, why is it happening at Elm and Duke, but not in some other areas? Why is it? And I'm not asking him to answer that, but that's the issue of why are we seeing it in certain areas and not others.
Councilman Woodard, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Neal, I just want to, speak to some of your concerns that you have. I actually grew up in that area, not too far from Elm and Duke. My sister's in the back. She can confirm that as well. She can vouch for that. So that's my community. And, as you were speaking about the things that's going on, I can relate to those things because I see it every day. I think it's got worse, the prostitution and the shooting and the crime. And I think a lot of those things just increase. I don't know if it's because of the pandemic or whatnot, but what we don't want to do is, say any excuses. We want to make sure that we are addressing the issue head on. But I am a member of this council, and what I can say is that I go to those areas if some of my colleagues can't, and I'm here to represent them as well. When I go to a Swanson Homes, a Dale Homes, a Prentice Park, a Brighton, I'm there talking to the community on the behalf of my colleagues if they so, if they allow me to. But I do understand the things that you're saying, and you are being heard. And my thing is, when I do talk to those kids in those communities, some of the requests they have are, simple, recreation. Just like Vice Mayor Barnes was saying, just seeing blighted properties. It really is something I think that drains their mental. And it is something we got to do about it. It is a timeline that we do need to put on those things because, like I said, my heart is within that downtown community. And like Dr. Whitaker said, it don't happen in other communities. Or we should ask the question of why it's not happening in other communities. What is going on in our locality, in our Portsmouth government that's not addressing these issues in this area? Because it's been like that for a long time. I mean, like you said, you moved away and you came back, and pretty much it's the same thing. It's been that way for a long time. No one paves those roads. No one is holding the rental owners accountable of what's going on in those communities. So I just think that we, as leaders in this community, as your leaders, we have to do a better job at just tightening on the policies that we are implementing, in those communities, and also just addressing these issues at hand. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And our last speaker, Mr. Tony Goodwin. Welcome, sir, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. That was quick. Didn't know I needed the auctioneer tonight. Anyhow, Mayor, City Council members, City staff, my name is Tony Goodwin. I live in the section of Parkview here in the City of Portsmouth. And as you both, and we've talked about it tonight, on May 31st at 2 p.m., we had a 16-year-old shot on Crawford Parkway within feet of the old Parkview Elementary School. And then on the 12th at 6 p.m., a 14-year-old and another 15-year-old was shot, and then one succumbed to their obvious injuries. And it hit close to home, not only being in the neighborhood that I live and I was born in and come back to with my wife in 2004, but we raised our daughter in that school at Parkview Elementary, and now getting ready to go into Churchland High School next year. It really hit home because she's 13 going on 14, the same age as the one that had perished right there in that playground at Parkview Elementary. I'm not trying to sensationalize this, but I'm trying to tell you that I'm stepping up as a father, as a community activist, as someone who is vested in a stakeholder in this city, and will be very vocal about this until we get some results that we know we can handle as a community. And so what I'm going to implore you, and what I've been trying to champion for a number of years, is the fact that the federal government instituted in 1986 the drug-free zones around our schools, a 1,000-foot buffer that goes around Parkview Elementary, which would encompass about 80% of the neighborhood. Add to that, I see Norcom right around the corner. Add to that the daycare facility, safe harbor, anything relating to children. It is under that act that was instituted by the federal government and then reconstituted by the No Child Left Behind Act in the mid-90s to then include safe and drug-free zone districts or zones around public schools and places where children are to betterment their achievements in society and gain a better opportunity and not be killed, obviously, in those areas. So what I'm asking for this city council to consider, and here's where the answer is to get results right away, is that the city, we have a sign shop. We need to make those signs again, drug-free or safe zones, once again, and install those along the perimeters of all of our schools and encourage all of our daycare facilities, Ida Barber Child Care Learning Center, over in Prentice Park, Brighton Elementary as well, which will encompass a lot more of an area right there in downtown where most of these crimes are happening. And put those signs in place, warning the folks that are coming in that it's not necessarily a punishment by the charge that normally is maybe 1 year, 2 years, whatever. It's twice, maybe even 3 times that. That's the warning we want to put off. It puts a tool in the toolbox of our community, our police, and we have to get our Commonwealth's attorneys and also our judges on board with enforcing these rules. They're still on the books. We're just not using them. And I think that if you drive down London Boulevard or down High Street, there's a speed limit sign that says 30 miles an hour. You drive 30 miles an hour. If you drive 45 or 50 or 60 miles an hour, you're going to get a ticket. It's a sign that says this is what's the safe spot to be driving in this area. So we want to ask you just to say, today we can put the money out, produce these signs, install these signs, also act as a public service announcement, and social media. Give us the tools as a community, spreading the word to the families, the friends, the criminals that are doing these acts and these heinous acts in these areas, and say, we're tired of it, and we're going to take back our neighborhood in this way. So I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you tonight, and I would like to obviously champion the cause Mr. Stromberg, if he can verify and make sure that everything that I've been reading on when it comes to safe and drug-free school zones is still in effect and ready to be used as a tool to combat this violence of our youth. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Battle, sir, you have the floor.
I think this is very important to the citizens. We recently appropriated $2 million. $2 million. I understand the 1.5, but we're going to get $2 million for the programs in the needed areas. We're going to put these pieces in place, and we have begun. And I know how important it is to do this as expediently as we can. And we will. But it took this long to appropriate money for the programs. How many years is that? But we're coming. We're coming and trying to come as fast as you want us to. So I'm not saying bear with, I'm saying continue to push, and we're gonna get there, because we all understand that big problem we got about changing the attitudes of our youth, providing the programs needed for the different stages of development, and how important it is for the police department to marry the communities and not to be standoffish and feel threatened by them, to be a part of the communities. How important it is to initiate social services and other services that we have. All of us will be on this problem. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Heard a lot of discussion tonight about the gun violence. If persons are concerned about the gun violence issue, then we saw a few months ago, this forum here was packed out with persons who were supporting gun rights. And so if we're gonna come up here and talk about these guns in our neighborhoods, but at the same time, you know, you're toting your NRA card and you're supporting all of these weapons, then realize that you're part of the problem as well. This council has to address the issue of gun control issues we've raised before. And so just saying, if we're concerned about it, those guns come into these neighborhoods by policies that allow it.
Council members, seeing no additional business for our consideration, this meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone.